Are you a lifelong fan of General Hospital?
Are you a new fan who wants to know more about the history of the show?
Do you enjoy talking about the show with others?
Do you find yourself yelling at the TV?
Is your self-care an hour a day in Port Charles?
If so, we invite you to join hosts
Amanda Kimmel
and Shannon Coach at the place where all the hidden conversations take place and secrets are revealed.
Meet us at Pier 54,
a General Hospital fan podcast. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the Port Charles 411. Today is part 12 of Bobbie Spencer, years 2002 to 2004. And there was quite a bit of a break between the end of 2001, which is where we saw Bobbie and Roy wishing Laura and Scotty well, right? Is that what just happened?
No, Laura and Luke.
Laura and Luke.
Yes. Laura had just declined the proposal from Scotty and was starting to work things out with Luke. So Roy and Bobbie were like, yay, I hope they go on wonderfully. I don't remember. So this starts with Liz's, well, it started, I didn't bother including it just because like we've talked about before, some stuff is such a minute piece that Bobbie plays. It talked about Liz's wedding and them getting ready for it and Bobbie gifting her the present. And then it went into the conversation of Liz saying that she doesn't know that Lucky actually loves her and wants to marry her and like all the fallout from all of that. So I couldn't remember what day that like actually happened. Was that New Year's? We just talked about it with Lucky. Was that right after New Year's? I mean, I guess it had to be because it was in January.
I wasn't. I thought it was Valentine's Day. That's why I was going to say I thought it picked up in February when the wedding was supposed to take place.
No, they were preparing for it. They were preparing for this one the beginning of January.
So it might have been New Year's Eve. Again, this is going back to, I know that we just talked about this.
Right. We just talked about how we can't remember whatever. But no, I went in order of how Soap Central had it. So it was the beginning of January that they were talking about it. But I couldn't remember if, because their dates don't align with real dates because sometimes Christmas is on the weekend or whatever. And so I couldn't remember, was it supposed to be a New Year's Eve wedding? Which, again, we should totally know because we just did Lucky. But anyway, it starts with after the wedding was called off because the only thing that it really talked about through all of the wedding stuff was Liz and Lucky, since it was their wedding, not Bobbie's.
Right. I will stick with your conclusion that it was New Year's Eve because my initial reaction was to go to Valentine's Day. But
yeah, it definitely wasn't Valentine's Day, but I don't know if it was New Year's Eve or if it was right after the New Year that it was supposed to take place. So
we'll go with the New Year's Eve because that sounds like something that, you get married on New Year's Eve, whatever.
The only thing I can think of when someone says that is that it must be very expensive. I can't even imagine how much a New Year's Eve venue would be. I know someone who got married on New Year's Eve. They had a beautiful wedding. I was not invited to because we're not that close. But looking at her pictures, I was like, this is gorgeous. How much did that cost? But Liz was just getting married at the house. So I guess it doesn't matter. They were being cost effective. So anyway.
So after Liz's wedding is called off, she retreats to Bobbie's house to rest. When she wakes from a long nap, she confides in Bobbie about her anger towards Lucky. And this was brainwashed Lucky that just came back from the dead under Helena's control.
Right.
She feels blindsided. Lucky knew he no longer loved her and never said so. And Nicholas and Gia knew as well. I'd be more mad about that one. That other people knew. Bobbie helps her see that anger and embarrassment can feel similar and that perhaps her relationship with Lucky isn't over, only changed. Liz begins to consider whether the two of them might rebuild something new. Just as someone knocks at the door, she begs Bobbie not to reveal that she is there. When Bobbie answers, it's Lucky searching for her. At the hospital, Scott stops by to see Bobbie and awkwardly asks her to call him during his date with Alexis so he'll have an escape plan if the evening goes badly. She reluctantly agrees.
And Alexis had asked one of her friends to do the same thing. So it was kind of funny that they both had a backup of, hey, get me out of the state.
That is okay. So they knew each other, though, more than most people do. But like, that's not a bad thing to have in place, guys. Like,
right.
I met JD online. I had somebody checking in on me during my dates. I only had 3 dates before him. One guy I went on 2 dates with.
But I thought you were going to say I only had 3 people checking up on me. And I was going to be like, poor JD. He was probably like, why does her phone keep going off?
No, just the one, but 3 different dates. But yeah, I mean, it's you want someone to check in on you.
Better to be safe than sorry, yes.
Yes. Laura bursts into the brownstone in a fury, demanding to know where Luke is. Bobbie, so they came back?
Yes, they came back.
Oh, yeah, they came back when Lucky, that's right. They came back because they were chasing after Lucky. They were like 3 steps behind Lucky and Helena.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, but Lucky came back at some point during the last episode. Okay. This is where we get stuck with the timeline things.
Wasn't he still kind of like working for Helena, though? Weren't they trying to break
I think so.
Because them going off, although they were together, it still did have something to do with Helena, because they were talking about being on her yacht, but it was the Haunted Star and whatever. So it's hard because we don't want to go down those rabbit holes, or else every single episode would be 20 hours long.
Yep. That's why we just try to reference. By the way, this is the actor. So it was Jacob Young Lucky.
Yes.
If you're curious about this whole time, go find that. And it's the same year, 2002 to 2002. Go there. So Bobbie greets her kindly, and Laura cuts her off and explains how Luke abandoned her during their travels. Scott arrives just in time to overhear. Laura is stunned to see him, and Bobbie leaves the two alone. Later, Bobbie and Scott share a comfortable dinner that he insists is not a date, though he invites her to a hockey game afterward. Felicia arrives unexpectedly and assumes they are on a date. She pesters Bobbie before rushing off, leaving Bobbie slightly rattled but not unhappy. Meanwhile, Roy approaches Laura for help investigating malicious, suspicious history with elderly patients. Lucky agrees to hack into hospital files and discovers a pattern of deaths connected to Melissa's case. We would not have been talking about this yet with Lucky whenever there was the suspicious deaths going on around. Oh, yeah, we would have, because that's when he came back, was when he was helping Liz find the suspicious deaths with the digitalis.
Yes.
Okay. As Roy confronts Melissa with the findings, she denies wrongdoing, but cannot explain why her files repeated references to giving patients a blessing. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah, so there is YouTube video of all of this. I was trying to not go on about it too much, because obviously it's Melissa's story more than Bobbie, even though she was involved. She wasn't with Roy at this point in time, so it wasn't really part of her storyline. But yeah, they approach her and they're like, hey, do you remember what happened to this patient? And she explains it. And then she's like, well, you don't know. It could be a blessing. And then later she's talking about somebody else and she says the same thing. And then Bobbie is comparing charts with someone else and is like, yeah, I was really shocked that this person passed away. And the other person is like, no, I'm talking about somebody that just passed away like yesterday. And Bobbie's like, no, I'm talking about this chart from 6 weeks ago. And so then they go through all of the charts of these mysterious people that just died. And in all of the charts, Melissa has written that this was a blessing that they just happened to pass.
At no point did anyone say, hey, Melissa, keep it to medical.
Yeah, I guess
opinions,
not.
And keep opinions out.
I guess not.
I don't know what I would do if I read, like, in a loved one's chart.
Right? Hey, they're dead. It was a blessing.
Right. Hi, Bobbie, deeply shaken, begins to accept that Melissa has been killing. She begins to accept it? That
She was giving her the benefit of the doubt. They had come full circle here that she had hated Melissa, and then everyone was like, you just hate her because of Roy. Give her a break. She seemed like a competent nurse, so Bobbie was accepting her, and then all of a sudden, Roy's like, hey, yeah, I think that girl I told you to stop giving a hard time to is actually killing people and writing that it's a blessing.
Aye. So cornered in the hospital chapel, Melissa insists she eased suffering and asks Roy to understand. But when Bobbie appears and calls her a murderer, Melissa finally breaks. Taggart arrives to arrest her. Before she is taken away, Melissa kisses Roy and calls him Judas. At the station, both Bobbie and Scott offer to help, but Melissa refuses. She says she will go back to Chicago, where she believes she will get a fair trial. Life continues on at the brownstone. Bobbie and Laura have a frank talk about their children and then about Scott. Bobbie admits Scott asked her out properly and wants to be sure that Laura no longer has feelings for him. Laura assures her that she loves Luke and encourages Bobbie to pursue Scott if she wants to. Later on the docks, Bobbie asks Scott directly if he truly wants her or is on the rebound from Laura. Their answer comes in a kiss. That's not an answer.
It's not, but she took it as one.
Bobbie and Scott soon settle into a tentative romance. They pick up Michael from Club 101, arguing over Carly's parenting, and end the evening on tense terms. But their conflict becomes unimportant when news breaks that Carly's car has gone off a cliff. When the police Sunny, Bobbie, Xander, and Jax each cope with guilt and fear in their own way. Scott rushes to tell Bobbie himself to spare her hearing it from someone else. As the search drags with no body found, Bobbie refuses to believe Carly is dead. She clings to hope when Michael wanders off, convinced he saw his mother. When Luke delivers the devastating news that the DNA confirms the recovered body is Carly's, Bobbie collapses in grief, but she insists she does not feel Carly's spirit is gone, as she did with the death of her daughter, BJ. Preparations begin for the funeral. Bobbie retreats upstairs, vowing not to attend, but at the last moment, she comes downstairs dressed in black. During the service, Jax and Xander speak, followed by Luke. Bobbie finally rises to speak through tears, only for the church doors to open. Who wants to guess who it is?
Could it be Carly?
Ding, ding, ding! Bruised and dazed, but alive, she stumbles down the aisle. Shocked and overwhelmed, she flees. Is that the first place you would go?
No.
I'm lucky that I'm alive and I somehow got out of that. I'm just going to take a guess that everyone's at the church for my funeral.
And she wasn't expecting to find them, because that's why she flees, is then they're all like, oh my gosh, Carly, and she runs away like, I'm way too overwhelmed. What's going on?
Oh, well, then maybe you would go there because you're assuming that the pastor would be there to help you.
I'm assuming that it's just the first place that you came upon that wasn't a normal, like just a regular house, but I don't know.
So Sunny follows her, and Bobbie soon finds them both at the park. Carly is checked into the hospital, where Tony determines she only has minor injuries and a concussion. That's not minor. She remembers little of the accident. With Carly safe, life in Port Charles begins to settle. Bobbie and Scott draw closer while preparing for a party. Laura loses her engagement ring and panics that it's a bad omen for her marriage to Luke. Bobbie tries to reassure her and even calls in a psychic. Chaos follows. Wedding plans collapse, documents vanish, and Laura grows frantic. The psychic eventually declares she sees Laura's ring on Bobbie's hand, leaving Bobbie and Scott baffled as the story continues. Laura's voice quivered when she left a message on Bobbie's machine. She found a lead on her long-lost engagement ring and was heading out of town to chase it. Bobbie didn't like the sound of the message, and neither did Scott. Together, they went down to Kelly's, retracing Laura's steps. There, tucked away beneath a table, Scott found the ring. Bobbie slipped it on instinctively, only to discover it stuck fast on her finger. After a painful struggle, a lot of butter, and even more cursing, she wriggled it free.
If you found someone's engagement ring, would you instinctively put it on?
I think it would honestly depend, just because a ring is supposed to be worn. So like maybe I would put it on just for safekeeping, like instead of in my pocket where it could fall out.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like I would call you and tell you I have it first and put it
absolutely.
somewhere.
Yeah, no, like that. Yeah, absolutely. Especially
like she instinctively puts it on. I've never instinctively put someone else's jewelry on.
No. But if you found somebody's necklace, like you would put it on instead of putting it in your pocket so that the chain doesn't get all crumbled.
Right.
And I feel like with a ring, you would put it on instead of putting it in your pocket where it could fall out.
Yes.
But no, you're right. Like without having first called and said, hey, Laura, I have your ring. Come to Kelly's and get it.
You're right. Come back from wherever you are.
Right. They weren't just walking in the park, where at this time perhaps they didn't have a cell phone, although I think that they would. But yes, in this instance, yes. So when the ordeal was over, she made Scott promise, grumbling as he was, that he would behave himself at her brother's wedding. Bobbie knew the Spencers and the Baldwins had a long history, and Laura's fragile mental state made it all more important to keep the peace. Bobbie sensed immediately that Carly was up to something, and she was right. Carly was planning to seduce Jason and then have Sunny walk in on them. She wanted to hurt Sunny, and Bobbie wanted no part of it. As Carly set her trap, the timing twisted against her. Jason was at Sunny's, explaining that he had dinner with Carly at 6. Sunny felt the storm coming and asked Jason if he realized what Carly was doing. At Kelly's, Bobbie was talking with Rick Weber when Scott arrived, followed by Carly. Oh, this is when Laura starts to have her break because she starts to remember all the stuff with Rick. Okay. Followed by Carly. Carly demanded dates on the restraining order she had filed against Sunny. Scott assured her, okay, then why would Sunny come walking in on you if you would put a restraining order against him?
It was normal Carly craziness, just trying to get attention in any way that she could. He didn't react to the fact that she was trying to hook up with Jason. So the next thing to get a reaction would be, of course, to get a restraining order out on someone.
Yeah. Scott assured her that it was moving forward. Bobbie dragged Carly outside, furious with her daughter's latest self-destructive stunt. Then Sunny walked in. Smiling, trying to talk to Carly, he didn't get far. Carly threw the restraining order in his face and a patrol officer overheard. Sonny was arrested on the spot.
I've never tried to have someone have interest in me by having a restraining order put against them. Oh, talking about cell phones, there's a cute scene that I didn't really get into because they were kind of just bystanders for it. But Scott and Luke got caught in an elevator with a pregnant woman who goes into labor. And Bobbie and Laura are expecting them because it's a party for Audrey. They're expecting them to be there. And so Bobbie says to Laura, "Oh, I'm going to have to go get my cell phone and call Scott and see where he is." And Laura's like, "Oh, can I borrow it so that I can call the babysitter to make sure that Lulu's okay?" Like, everyone did not have cell phones. They did not carry them with them at all time. Bobbie's was somewhere else in her purse, and Laura didn't even have one. And they ended up delivering the baby, and all was good. And it was like, a whole 5 minutes that Luke and Scott were getting along. So everyone is happy about that. But I just thought it was funny the way that they mentioned the cell phone. Like, now everyone has one on them all the time. It would be here. Why would you need to borrow my cell phone? You have your own.
I honestly miss those days a lot.
Me too.
Yeah.
So later, Bobbie sat with Luke, who was convinced Scott was hiding something about Laura's memories. Bobbie insisted he was imagining conspiracies where none existed. The world only got more tangled when Ned arrived asking after Alexis, and Bobbie informed him that Sonny's arrest likely had Alexis tied up at the PCPD. So this is whenever Alexis was his attorney. Meanwhile, Laura's fragile memories were shifting. She recalled a woman faintly, painfully. Luke asked Bobbie if she could identify the mystery figure. After some digging and looking at the sketch Elizabeth had drawn, Bobbie returned with a name, Teresa Carter, a nurse from the 70s. Unpredictable, and then she disappeared without a trace. The moment Bobbie says the name, Laura went pale and dropped her water. This was the beginning of the unraveling. Bobbie confided to Scott that she was deeply worried. Laura was remembering too much, and Scott and Rick knew they needed to get ahead of it. Bobbie tried to help Laura track down Teresa's contact information, but Luke intervened, insisting Laura not go down that road. Laura's sudden change in attitude about the attic unsettled Rick, and Scott became even more nervous when Bobbie caught him tampering with evidence. At the hospital, Scott instructed his people to track down Luke and Laura, who had vanished on the day of their wedding. He lied to Bobbie about the call, chalking it up to work. She invited him and Serena on vacation, and then he refused, using his new DA duties as an excuse. The attic mystery deepened. Scott was acting strange to protect Laura, and Bobbie didn't know what to believe. Soon after Bobbie visited Luke at the police station, he was spiraling. Refusing to fight the charge of killing Rick Weber, Bobbie begged him not to confess, insisting Laura could testify and explain what really happened. Luke refused. He didn't want Laura dragged into it. He didn't want her to relive the attic. And he didn't want Hope. Bobbie promised that she'd look after Lulu. And that was, again, obviously Bobbie was a part of it because it was her brother, but it was highly focused on Laura and Luke and the fact that Laura was regaining memories of the attic and Bobbie didn't know really much about it. So,
right.
Scott found her afterwards and lied again, claiming Luke insisted on confessing. Bobbie believed him. And then again, a random side story I did not get into. Sonny died, or everyone thought that he died. I don't know why he was faking his death at that point in time, but he faked his death. So Scott, ever the opportunist, pushed his run for DA. He and Alexis listened to tapes of Carly confronting the mob. Bobbie overheard Scott strategizing about going after Carly for political gain. He lied badly, claiming he thought Carly had information about Sonny's assassination. Bobbie, exhausted, reminded him that she had trusted too many people too blindly before. And then Scott asks Bobbie out because, I just heard you talking about using information about my daughter, but sure, I would love to go out on a date with you. So, of course, she declined. And then Lucas starts acting out, failing tests, skipping assignments. Georgie covers for him. Felicia tries to help, but Bobbie struggles to understand why her once steady son was spinning out. Scott kept on trying to win her over. He begged Bobbie to wear his campaign button. She demanded he treat her family with respect, and then she kissed him, which I'm not sure what she was thinking at that point either. I watched it, but it was still why are you even entertaining him. So on the night of the big debate, Bobbie arrives with Scott, but she sat with Carly at the political battlefield ignited. Scott unveiled the affidavit Carly had been forced to sign, claiming Alexis had an affair with Sonny. In front of the press, Carly exposed Scott's threats to involve Child Protective Services. Bobbie was horrified. She turned on Scott publicly, urging the voters of Port Charles not to support him. Sonny threatened a lawsuit, so he's come back to life now. Sonny threatened a lawsuit. Alexis and Scott exchanged accusations. By the end, Bobbie refused to even hear Scott's excuses. He had gone after her family, and he would pay for it. He continues to try to pursue her by bringing her roses. Bobbie hurls them at him one by one and then throws them out of Kelly's. The Spencer boys, which is actually Nicholas and Lucky, so I don't know why it's quite Spencer boys, but okay. The Spencer boys drifted into their own battle, Lucky furious with his father, Nicholas blaming Lucky for hurting Laura. Bobbie tried to hold them together. Nicholas even asked her to pretend that she had forgiven Scott so that their family could use him strategically. But Bobbie had her own fires to put out. Lucas kept skipping school, pulling Georgie and Maxie into trouble, and Bobbie finally threatened military school. This is whenever the teens were like finally starting to get their own personalities, because this is whenever Maxie was having that huge crush on poor Lucky, and he didn't know how to handle it because he saw her as just his little sister. And the teens were like going to parties and doing things. So she was struggling with Lucas because he was not being that perfect little kid he had been. Carly confided that Jason had married Brenda to protect her from Sonny. Bobbie was furious. Jason was sacrificing himself again. Sky collapsed in exhaustion, and Bobbie tried to comfort her, insisting that Jax truly loved her despite Brenda's presence. I wanted to get lost in Brenda's storyline, but I didn't because I knew that wasn't what we needed. Then Lucas's academic struggles deepened. Georgie gently suggested maybe he had dyslexia, but Lucas shut it down, and Bobbie grounded him anyway. Meanwhile, the Spencer world crumbled. Luke dug a grave in Riker Woods, symbolically burying Laura because he believed if she recovered, prison awaited her. And again, this is more of the whatever happened in the attic. He had a picture of her from like back in the day, and he was burying it because she was dead to him and dead to the world. They were never going to have her around because if she came out of her, I don't mean to say craziness insensitively, but craziness, that then she would be found guilty for murder. Leslie, Lucky, and Nicholas tried to pull him back from despair. Bobbie arrived with Lulu, whose embrace softened Luke momentarily. As she left, after Lulu left, Bobbie tore into him, accusing him of abandoning all of Laura's children. A month later, Luke was hit by a truck. The driver accused him of an insurance scam. Cameron arrived and declared Luke's grip on reality tenuous. Bobbie bristled. Who was Cameron? Luke insisted that he'd tried to save a woman from the truck. Bobbie called Tony to examine him. Luke ignored his injuries and muttered about ghosts. And then this was whenever that summer girl, like, mysteriously was appearing, but no one else saw her yet. So it seemed like Luke was extra crazy. Alexis went into preterm labor, and Bobbie stayed with her through the terrifying days as baby Christina lay in the ICU. And this was a lot of Alexis, too, because Alexis had taken on that she was her sister Christina. And so then there was the thoughts of if she could take care of baby Christina. And Bobbie didn't really have anything to do with any of that other than just being a good nurse, standing by her patient, trying to help everyone cope with what was going on. Luke spiraled further. He dressed as Santa Claus at Kelly's and gave away store items. Like, here's a napkin holder.
Okay.
And money. He took money out of the till and was like, here you go, here you go, here you go. So Liz called...
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Liz called Bobbie to stop the chaos. Carly arrived mid-crisis, and Bobbie barely had time for her drama. And then later on the hospital rooftop, Luke climbed out onto the ledge. Cameron, which this is Xander's dad, but in the beginning we didn't know that was Xander's dad. And that's why we have younger Cameron named Cameron nowadays. Cameron joined him, handcuffing himself to Luke, refusing to let him fall alone. When Luke claimed that Summer was there, Cameron refused to look. Chaos erupted below with the police, media, lights. Eventually, Summer appeared, freeing Luke from Cameron's hold, and Luke left with her, comforted by her resemblance to Laura. And that was how they ended 2002.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's interesting now that we just went through all this with Lucky because we got a lot of this, but to see Bobbie's side of it too, and how she was working with Luke because it was a heavy Lucky and Luke story.
Right.
If your brother's having delusions of his love, you're going to be involved in that.
Right.
So in 2003, Lucky asked Bobbie how she found the strength to escape prostitution and build a real life. He didn't tell her that Summer had been a prostitute too. Bobbie helped Cameron track Xander down when he missed therapy, but she kept trying to pull Luke back to reality as he drifted. Bobbie's days were filled with caring, Liz's snakebite, Faith's lurking threat, Faith Roscoe, a pregnancy Liz didn't want. Bobbie offered support and information gently and carefully. Liz lost her...
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Your lovely Faith was thinking that Liz was in the way of everything with, oh my gosh, Rick was in the way of everything with Rick. She wanted to deal with Rick. And Liz was like, I'm not who's in your way with Rick. Like, Rick and I are done and over. There is nothing going on. But because Faith thought that there was something going on, she planted a snake in Liz's apartment or her studio. And so Liz gets bit by the snake and goes to the hospital to make sure that it's not poisonous. And it's not poisonous. But when they run all the blood work, that's when they find out that she's pregnant. And this is when she's pregnant with Rick's baby. And it actually had a really nice scene, again, not Bobbie centered, but a really nice scene between Liz and Carly, because Liz got information from Bobbie about if she wanted to have an abortion. And she went and sat in the waiting room, like just trying to come to grips with everything. And then Carly saw her and went to say something. And she was like, I don't have time to deal with you. Like, I can't even, do Carly crap right now. So she gets up to walk away and she drops one of the pamphlets that says about abortion. And Carly goes and tells her about how she almost had an abortion when she was pregnant with Sonny's baby from the night of passion after the argument, whatever, and that she ended up miscarrying eventually, but that she still had a lot of guilt around that because she was thinking about having the abortion. So we got to see a little softer side of Carly, directed at Liz, no less, for a minute.
Yeah. Liz lost her sight. Bobbie found her collapsed in the hall and rushed her into treatment. Faith plotted again, sending a fake surgeon to the OR, and Bobbie unknowingly assisted him. At Kelly's, Scott's mood worsened. Lucky wanted to intervene in Luke's latest stunt, but Bobbie secretly gave him the location of the warehouse where she herself had once been held. Lucky found Luke staging a mock trial with Stefan tied to a chair. Bobbie threw a party for Carly and Sonny, though Carly arrived alone. Sonny saw Lily's ghost and spiraled deeper. Carly brought Michael to Kelly's, telling Bobbie Sonny had moved out for her safety. When Bobbie tried to understand. At the hospital, Bobbie brought baby Morgan to Carly's bedside, telling the unconscious mother her child needed her. Carly dreamed of an afterlife in which she hadn't hurt Bobbie so deeply. Bobbie confronted Sonny, demanding to know where her grandchildren were. She reminded him he had fired the bullet lodged in Carly's brain. She vowed to fight for custody if Carly didn't recover. When Carly finally woke enough to speak, she confessed to Bobbie that she felt detached from the world. Dreams had felt like decades lived. Bobbie listened, relieved her daughter was awake at all. Carly begged Bobbie to help delay Sonny's release into police custody. Bobbie hesitated. She didn't like interfering, but eventually agreed. She administered a sedative strong enough to slow Sonny down. Later, Scott and officers stormed Sonny's hospital room, only to find the bed empty. On a private plane, Carly sat beside a drugged Sonny, telling him that Bobbie had given him a little too much sedative. Sonny chuckled, groggily, amused that Bobbie had helped them escape. Carly smiled at him. It meant they were on the run together. After Sonny is acquitted, he and Carly go to Kelly's to celebrate. Bobbie has champagne waiting and congratulates Sonny on being clear of all charges. Meanwhile, Lorenzo Alcazar tries to question Bobbie and Carly, but she refuses to tell him anything. After reminding him how much Carly values her family, Bobbie leaves him frustrated. In Alcazar's attempt to get information from Carly's doctor also fails. At Christmas, Luke experiences the Ghosts of Christmas Past dream, like the Christmas Carol.
Right.
When it ends, he goes to Bobbie's house and gives Lulu a special necklace, telling her it is to remind her of her mother. As Luke hands out gifts, everyone begins singing Silent Night. Later, Luke steps outside and tells Laura that he did it all for her.
Yeah, I didn't get into the goes to Christmas Pat. Like, Bobbie was in that dream, but obviously wasn't Bobbie. It was Luke's own deliriousness of what his life should have been. So then we're into 2004. During the Port Charles Hotel fire aftermath, Georgie arrives at General Hospital with Tom and Sage. Bob immediately hugs her, relieved she survived, and urges her to find Maxie, who has been worried about her. Bobbie then rushes off to treat Officer Brian Breck, who has been shot. Brian, still semi-conscious, asks Bobbie if Courtney escaped the fire. Bobbie tells him she believes Courtney survived but has no information about Jason. Bobbie later informs Luke that Scott Baldwin is dead. The police found a body that identified him, and Bobbie reflects that Scott was the first man she ever loved. So her first love wasn't
And
Roy
Laura's
all of a
were the
sudden.
same.
Right, but she had love.
That's right.
Yeah, but I guess when you die, people change how they feel, because she said that he was her first love. While Luke comforts her, Scott's actually alive, disguised as a firefighter back at the hotel, digging through garbage for a treasure he had hidden. At the hospital, Bobbie tells the Quartermaines that Edward is out of surgery and asleep, and Tracy goes in to sit with him. At the penthouse, Carly tries calling Bobbie at the hospital. Michael overhears and asks to come along, but Carly tells him that she needs to talk to Bobbie alone. When Michael asks whether Carly is angry about Sam's baby, Carly reassures him that Sonny is probably not the father and insists that Sam will eventually leave Port Charles. Talk about inappropriate conversations with your children. It's like, don't worry, Michael. He's probably not the dad. It's fine.
Right.
Leslie Weber comes to the hospital to speak with Bobbie, upset about Skye's recent visit. She insists Skye is trying to set up Laura to get Luke. Bobbie points out that Skye could be telling the truth, and that if Luke had Laura hidden somewhere, he would have contacted them if he truly believed Skye had framed Laura. Leslie admits that Luke would have reached out unless Laura's condition had worsened. Bobbie concludes that something more is going on than they understand. At the PCPD, Skye warns Rick that convicting an innocent woman of Ross Duncan's murder means the real killer is still free. Meanwhile, above Kelly's, Heather Weber listens to news about Skye's conviction and marks a red X over newspaper clippings showing Skye and Laura. Heather visits Kelly's and surprises Bobbie by announcing she plans to stay in Port Charles permanently. Bobbie invites her to stop by the brownstone later. And this was just weird. Seeing, like, Bobbie and people being nice to Heather was just, after everything we've gone through with Heather the past few years, it was just weird to, like, come on over to the brownstone. No, it was incredibly crazy. So before the visit, in true Heather fashion, Heather slips a mysterious bottle from her suitcase into her purse. At the brownstone, she finds Bobbie, Leslie, and Lulu drinking lemonade on the steps. Using a moment of distraction, Heather secretly puts drops from the bottle into Leslie's lemonade. Bobbie and Leslie privately wonder whether Heather has truly changed. Heather encourages them to toast to old times and makes sure that Leslie finishes her drink. When Leslie leaves, Bobbie returns inside briefly, leaving Heather alone with Lulu. Heather questions Lulu about Luke and flashes back to seeing Luke in a straitjacket in an institution. Elsewhere, Lucky visits Skye in jail and promises to uncover the truth about Ross Duncan's murder. Later, Heather is pleased when Bobbie returns with news that Leslie has been in an accident. Heather calls the hospital pretending to be family and asks about Leslie's condition. She learns Leslie is improving but will remain for several days. Heather adds more Skye-related headlines to her scrapbook. At GH, she overhears Bobbie arranging for Lulu to stay in daycare but offers to watch her herself. Bobbie thanks her and initially declines, but Heather persuades her by suggesting something more fun for Lulu. Bobbie agrees to bring Lulu to Kelly's later. After Bobbie leaves, Heather tells Lulu she can't wait to see the Spencer home. Emily visits Kelly's, where Liz offers condolences. Bobbie brings Emily chocolate cake and tells her that with Lila gone, Emily must help guide the family. Felicia joins Bobbie and shares that Robin will return for Lila's funeral, which pleases Bobbie. Does not please Carly, by the way. Liz later meets with Bobbie to ask whether she should become a nurse. Bobbie encourages her, calling it difficult but rewarding. Liz tells Audrey, who is happy about her decision. And that's just sweet. After everything that Bobbie and Liz had gone through with Liz's rape, it's sweet to see her making that decision.
Carly visits Bobbie with Morgan. Bobbie warns her not to villainize Sam. Carly complains about Sam requesting Sonny's medical records, and Bobbie explains they're needed for the baby's complete file. Carly then asks about her own birth father, mentioning a shared freckled birthmark. I thought, never mind, because Carly's father wasn't a relationship.
Right. You're going to get into all that.
Okay. That's why I stopped. I was like, this is going to happen. Never mind. Bobbie refuses to discuss her past or former customers, in quotations. Carly continues pressing, angering Bobbie. I think that's fair because Carly knows what Bobbie used to do and that she worked really hard to get out of it. So maybe...
Yeah.
Bobbie insists Carly's father was a client from her prostitution days, and she wants nothing to do with revisiting that time. Carly apologizes, but later steals Bobbie's old diary and discovers a reference to a boyfriend with missing pages, leading her to suspect he may be her father. Carly brings the diary to Jason and asks for help. He refuses to read Bobbie's diary, but advises Carly to stop, fearing she'll be hurt if her father rejects her. Carly later confronts Bobbie with a faxed birth certificate, hoping it will jog her memory. Bobbie becomes defensive and again insists Carly's father was an anonymous client. Bobbie then visits Sonny to help him stop Carly's search. Carly overhears, and Bobbie explains she fears Carly will be hurt and is ashamed of her past. Sonny agrees publicly with Bobbie to calm her. Jason also warns Carly that the search could bring pain. Soon after, Bobbie secretly phones someone, reporting that Carly is asking questions. Bobbie hires a private investigator to retrieve her diary from Carly's house. Why didn't she just ask Felicia to go get it?
I don't know. Or even Sonny at this point, because I feel like Sonny would have respected, hey, that's my diary.
Yeah, the detective hesitates, given Carly's ties to Sonny, but Bobbie insists Carly must not discover the truth. Later, Carly again asks for help, and Bobbie again denies knowing anything. Liz later tells Bobbie that her half-brother Stephen is in town, and she fears Heather's presence, calling his mother dangerous. Bobbie checks Carly's wrist after an injury. Carly apologizes for pushing, but Bobbie suspects she's hiding something and asks if Carly knows who her father is. Meanwhile, John Durant intercepts a postcard Bobbie sent to Carly. He gives it to Stephen to obtain DNA from the stamp. Oh my gosh, the good old days of DNA on a stamp.
Yep.
Guys, we used to lick those. They were not adhesive. Self-adhesive. Stephen runs the tests and confirms Carly is John, Bobbie's daughter. However, when John reveals he plans to use Carly to get close to Sonny, Stephen lies and says Carly is not his daughter. John later acts shocked when Stephen tells him the DNA proves that he is not Carly's father. Carly then tells Bobbie she no longer needs to search for him. Bobbie is suspicious but accepts Carly's explanation. John soon learns from Liz that Carly's mother is Bobbie Spencer. He goes to Kelly's, sees Bobbie, and immediately calls Stephen. He tells him he remembers sleeping with Bobbie 29 years earlier. John then finds Bobbie at GH and calls her Barbara and tells her that he wants to talk to her about their daughter. Later, Carly confronts Bobbie, and Bobbie admits she suspected all along that John Durant was Carly's father. She explains that he was a regular client with whom she had unreciprocated feelings. When she warned his girlfriend about his visits to the cat house, Durant rejected her and left town just before she learned she was pregnant. Carly receives a call from Jason that Morgan is being rushed to the ER with convulsions. Bobbie and Carly join Sonny, Jason, and Michael at the hospital. Stephen diagnoses Morgan's acute infection. Bobbie later advises Durant to take things slow with Carly. Durant later asks Bobbie to help him build a relationship with Carly and promises Sonny will be left alone as long as he's married to Durant's daughter. And it wasn't mentioned here, was it? Did I miss it? John Durant was a detective.
It may not.
Or was he a federal? Yeah. He was a federal.
But yeah, he's a federal agent.
So that's why his threat that Sonny is okay as long as he stays married to his daughter.
Right.
After Bobbie leaves, Durant privately vows to take Sonny down. Durant meets Carly and Bobbie at Kelly's, drinks the same iced tea and lemonade mix. It's called an Arnold Palmer. And yes, I have to say it that slow because I mess up saying it. I can't say that name quickly. I'm a really bad Pittsburgh person because he's from not even an hour away.
Right.
Carly likes and looks through Michael's drawings without reacting to a hidden message from Sonny. Jason warns Sonny that he may have to kill Durant to protect his family. Bobbie visits Durant, disturbed when He insists their past relationship is over and that he has no romantic interest in her. Bobbie attends Morgan's birthday party, where Durant sends the baby a stuffed animal. John tells Bobbie he hopes Carly eventually leaves Sonny, while Bobbie believes Carly truly loves him. John says he now feels protective of Carly. At GH, Bobbie overhears Emily speaking to Luke and Skye about Nicholas's condition. Luke tells Bobbie that Laura died in a fire. Bobbie appears confused but hugs him. Luke tells Emily not to tell Lucky, and Bobbie advises Emily not to tell Nicholas until he is stronger. Bobbie goes with Luke and Skye to the casino, where Luke becomes increasingly exhausted and begins drinking. When Skye questions Bobbie's odd insistence on keeping Laura's death quiet, Bobbie tells her to leave family matters to her. Skye becomes suspicious.
Oh, sorry. Then the reason that they didn't want to tell Nicholas especially is this is whenever he had that amnesia and that weird woman found him, and then he came back and was like slowly piecing his life together, and he was feuding with Emily and Lucky because they hadn't told him that all the crap that crazy girl told him wasn't true. So it would have been just too much for him in his state.
Sure. Skye becomes suspicious and returns to GH. She overhears Bobbie calling the woman caring for Laura. Bobbie confirms Laura is alive and promises to visit. Skye attempts to call Luke, but crashes her car in the blizzard. Georgie alerts Bobbie, and an ambulance is sent. Skye is brought to GH, desperately trying to tell Luke that Laura is alive, but Bobbie has her wheeled away before she can speak. Luke catches Bobbie preparing to sedate Skye. Confronted, Bobbie admits that Laura is alive. She explains the nurse Heather hired was a friend of hers, and Bobbie arranged Laura's long-term care. She had planned to tell Luke, but then believed he would be better off moving on, so she faked Laura's death. Luke was furious and storms off to find Laura. Yeah.
Well, she faked the death, but she saved Laura because Heather was trying to kill Laura. So by her friend stepping in, I mean, Bobbie's got to be like, is it 6 of one or half dozen of the other? I saved her life. I just didn't let you know that I saved her life. Huh? So you're welcome.
Yeah.
But Luke's not looking at it like that, understandably.
No. If you have the choice between pretending to have my husband die, and even though Luke and Laura were not together, no.
No?
No. I'd be mad. Just throwing that out there.
Not sure why. I saved his life. Come on.
Later, Bobbie sees Skye signing her discharge papers. Skye ignores her until Bobbie insists she speak. Skye asks Bobbie how she could fake Laura's death. Bobbie apologizes, saying she wanted Luke to move on with Skye. Skye admits she does love Luke, but refuses to be with him based on a lie. Bobbie points out that Skye has also done questionable things for love. Skye acknowledges the criticism, but maintains she wants Luke freely, not through deception. Yes.
Yes. And that's where we end 04. I didn't go into 05 just because I felt like that might get to be too much if we combined all of those years. But this was a year that Bobbie, I feel like this past 2 years, Bobbie was just kind of involved because she's a nurse, involved because it was her brother, involved because it was whatever, other than fake killing Laura. She didn't really have a lot to do with the storylines herself. It was more stuff happening to other people.
Well, everything impacted her life, though. I mean, her sister-in-law, her daughter.
Right. Yeah.
I gotcha. All right. So with that, join us on Monday as we recap this week's shows.
Have a good weekend.
And we'll meet you at the pier.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, we invite you to go to pier54podcast.com to subscribe on your favorite platform. Don't forget to leave us a review. And you can also follow us on many social media channels. Just search for Pier 54 Podcast. Also, we are not perfect, so if there is something that we missed or messed up, just let us know by emailing us at pier54podcast@gmail.com.